I want to also start out by thanking 21C. Click has had a long, yes. Click has had a really long relationship with 21C. They've been our partner in various ways over the last many years. In particular, we always love the support of Alice Gray Stites, head curator. Right now, Amethyst Ray Beaver is doing the portfolio reviews for us, which started today. A good friend, Nell Fortune-Greeley. And because I've learned that research has shown if you use 3 names, people think you're smarter. So I'm Bryce Aaron Lankard, the director of the Click Photo Festival. We have on Main Street Windows, we have some selections from a show we have up at NCMA, which is called Persevere. It's an outdoor exhibition there. We have 3 images and a slideshow representing all the artists that submitted to that. Please look at it. I think it's gorgeous. And with Nell, we got together because they have this wonderful show upstairs called The Future is Female, and we wanted to do a speaker series. And so we brainstormed on a number of, there's a lot of great creative women in this area, and we came up with 3 people we wanted to offer to speak. Tonight, Rhonda is the first of those. Yay!
I would like to introduce Rhonda. Rhonda Klevansky is a South African videographer, photographer, and writer who lives in Durham, North Carolina. She has worked on a range of natural films for broadcasters in the UK, South Africa, and South America, advocacy videos and articles for nonprofit organizations, and has written a children's book about big cats. In her personal photography and film work, Klevansky exposes the fault lines of our society by focusing her lens on the valiant efforts of ordinary people to confront and mend the inequalities. The heart of her work is informed by her family's history of migration from war-torn Eastern Europe and her witnessing of oppression perpetrated in apartheid South Africa. Rhonda also had an exhibition here at 21C in the Main Street window vitrines back in July, which we will see and get to hear more about now. So please join me in welcoming Rhonda Klevansky.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Nell, Bryce, for inviting me here. And Nell, thank you so much for letting me use those vitrines. That was incredibly special, so thank you. I've just put a picture up of the vitrines, basically, so that people can see that's what it looked like, and Nell helped curate and figure out how to put them up. So, and that gives me a good moment to say thank you to John Moses, who is a very good photographer himself, and in the evenings when he wasn't attending patients or family, he was printing for me. He printed all of those pictures. So this is a good moment to say thanks, John. So I'm going to start back and just talk a little bit about my work, about how I come by doing this. And as Nell said, my personal work is really informed by the need to do something about things that bother me. And I can make photographs, I can write, I can make videos. I'm absolutely useless on committees. I'm a good foot soldier, but I can't organize things on committees. So I figured what I can do is I can photograph, and I can try and bring my things that are bothering me to the public, and hopefully it'll bother them too. That's my thought, or at least change something or shift something. It's optimistic, but maybe. So when I do this, I've really tried and work in collaboration with people. When I was a student of photography, a teacher said to us, never do drive-by shooting. So I try not to do drive-by shooting. I try and really work in collaboration with people and get to know people if I can while I'm making photographs. I always give photographs back if I can. I'll really do anything I can to give photographs back to people because I think it belongs to them as much as to me. And for this work and other work where I can, I also try and offer my services to people so that it's not purely extractive, with the idea of if I can do some photography for the organization, I do it at the same time, or I come back, or I spend another day there, or which is what I did when I was photographing here. I photographed and gave every single photograph to every person in every organization that if they want to use them in some way, they're theirs. There was no, like, you just use them for good, don't use them for bad, they're yours. And I always get consent from people if I'm photographing. And I always ask people if I'm going to put a picture up somewhere, if they are okay with me using that photograph, because it's their image going out into the world. And if they don't like the photograph, I don't use it. Just simple as that. So for this project, the Reaching Out to Durham's Hungry, it started during the pandemic. Early on, I was sitting at home fidgeting like everybody else was, and I volunteered to pack lunches for Durham public schools. Over at sort of Durham Tech, there were people packing lunches in big warehouses. And that gave me a lot of time to think about things and think about the nature of poverty and the nature of hunger, because as I put things into bags and I was looking to see what people were getting to eat, and I was thinking, this is very worrisome. And I hadn't really thought about this before. So I had hours to meditate on the nature of the problem. And then this, I guess, brought some other awareness, and I started noticing people doing things to help. So there was like our neighborhood, Watts Hillendale, had a mutual aid group, and they were feeding people. So I drove food to various places. And then I noticed that there was a free lunch down at Gear Street. The restaurant was giving away free lunches. Zwelly's was doing free lunches over on the other side, and people were driving food all over the place. And then the farmers market opened, and I go to the farmers market, and I got talking to the people from Boxcar Cheeses and learned that they were giving away cheese, which I was like, you've got to be kidding. Oh, yeah. And they said there was a lot of milk going to waste, and what were they going to do with it? So they developed a cheese that they could actually give away. It was, that's now called Farmer's Choice, and for every block you buy, they give away a whole lot of it. So they're still doing it. And then I thought, well, this would be a good project. And I wasn't quite sure how to go about it, but I thought the only way I can do it is start to go to places and see what people are doing. And I did. I went to some of the outreach locations and was just really shocked. For example, at Iglesia Manuel, people wait. There are lines and lines and lines and lines and lines of cars waiting. And so all those photographs that we might have seen in the newspapers of places in other parts of the United States where they have aerial photographs of all the cars waiting for hours and hours for food, we have it all the way around Durham, everywhere. And so on a Saturday morning, there'd be people waiting for 3 hours for a box of food, and very anxious they might not get, the food might run out. And I discovered this is all over the place. So I decided to photograph the people who are providing food, not the people who are receiving food. And that was partly after seeing what I thought was a terrible New York Times magazine feature of poor people and the way they were living and food insecurity. And I thought, I can't do that. So my thought was, if I photograph the people who are providing food and shine light on them, the shadow behind them is the food insecurity. So in that way, I'm hoping that people will get some sense of the food insecurity, but without actually having to put through people who are receiving food through the obligation of being photographed. And so that's why I started doing it, and that's why I thought to do portraits, because that was the only way I could photograph somebody without photographing everybody else who was receiving the food. And thus I concentrated on portraits. And I went, so I went to places and spoke to people and photographed mostly the way they wanted to be photographed, and was thinking about how am I going to get this out there, just little old me. So I had thought of like just printing things out and wheat pasting them around, but then a couple of friends decided to help me. Thank you to Steve Channing, who's here, is one of them, formed an ad hoc committee, Jenny Levine from the library, and Sydney Gardner, who Steve brought along from the museum, said that we could do better than just weed pasting pictures around town. So I was like, okay. And in the end, we ran a fundraiser, because raising money to produce photographs is tough. We ran a fundraiser, and the thing that did, to my surprise, is that it turned into a community thing, because it wasn't just me and the ad hoc committee anymore. It was now all these people who were supporting me and us, our project, by giving money. And so we then printed very large banners. And it was like our own campaign, really. And I just went and knocked on doors. Anywhere I saw a fence, I asked, excuse me, may I use your fence, please? And so the fence that I ended up using downtown was Bull McCabe. Bull McCabe's has a great fence to put photographs on. And they were very happy for that. So we had Bull McCabe's. The Durham Museum of History was happy to let us use the pergola, so we hung banners there. There was a very good fence down at Central Park, which is now sort of under construction from Vega, but there was a very nice fence there. So they let me use that. I had to do the gardening to kind of clear the fence, but that was all right. Went with my clippers and spent some time clearing the fence. So we put photographs up there. And the Durham Arts Council was fantastic about offering their windows, and the photographs are still in the windows. They have left them up there for us. So there's still a group of photographs that are in the windows of the Durham Arts Council. And of course, Nell very kindly let us use the vitrines here, which was just really wonderful. So I ended up photographing about 30 different people and organizations. I've got some photographs here and not all of them, because I didn't want to bore everybody with going through 30 photographs like family slideshow. So I decided to just choose the individuals instead of the organizations. And so this is the vitrines. This is at Bull McCabe's. See, what a great fence. Perfect fence for photographs. We had a fabulous designer, Nancy Frame, who volunteered her time also to do it. She does work does a lot of work for Duke. So she understood what is needed for an outside banner. And they were printed by Noose River, who gave us a bit of a deal to do that. This is at the Museum of History. And these are all big. These are sort of like 8-foot by 4-foot banners. Which is very ambitious. And then this is the fence down at Central Park, to give you some idea of all of that. And so here's some of the photographs of the people. So this is the siblings who run Boxcar, who just last year, and I don't know what the amount up to now is, because they're still giving away cheese. Up to the time when I photographed them, they had given away 10,000 pounds of cheese, which is pretty extraordinary. And so that's their farmer's choice cheese. I say they're still giving away cheese. Elijah King is an undergraduate who has done all sorts of work, advocacy work around Durham, and the food insecurity around town was bothering him too. So he approached some people, including the owner, Andy, at Gear Street, and said, can we do a free lunch program? And that's how the free lunch program began. It was Elijah's idea. He was a freshman, a college student. So it was through him that the free lunch program got set up. And these are some very wonderful people. It's Elder Gladys, who's on my left, runs a pantry called Grace Outreach. And she's had it for years. And before it was much more Bible studies, but then she's realized with this pandemic, there's a problem. And Her husband and the person who's helping her, the people who help her, are feeding, or were feeding and still are, about 700 families. She self-funds it. So she is a retired nurse. Her husband is a military, he's a military veteran, and so he's on a pension. They get some funding from people who just find them and give them funding, but they don't run any fundraising campaigns. They are just extraordinarily resourceful, so they glean in places where they can get good food. They know they have certain days they pick up food from Panera. They have certain days they pick up vegetables from various other places. And the thing with Elder Gladys is that she is very firm about the fact that people should not be eating bad food. And so she packages, every bag she packages is thought through like a nurse would think it through with good nutrition. She feeds elders. She has runs an emergency pantry for people during the week. She's just tireless. So it's like people like Elder, it's just between my anger at the situation of there being hunger in a country which is so wealthy, and my incredible admiration for people like Elders Gladys is what got me out the door. So another incredible woman is Teresa Mcgee. So she runs a pantry outside a little church way on the edge of the county, up sort of North Roxborough area. And they just give away food that they can get hold of. They have no money. So they also glean, and they just give away food. And the people who volunteer are a lot of the people who need food. So they are helping each other, and they give away what they can and get what they can. And she's just tireless. She started working with this couple, who's Reverend King and Mrs. Beatrice King, who are also right at the edge, and I forget, they're at the top of Guest Road, I think. I get confused, but anyway, they're right at the edge of the county. And they run a pantry through the Durham Mission Baptist Association. And similarly, they supply the food by getting money from their church members. Anything that they can receive, they do, and they package up food. And they have long lines of people coming, and they run out of food. When I was there, they ran out of food. People arrived, and I saw people walking there for who knows how far with backpacks, children in hand, who just were, so grateful to get whatever they could. And I don't know where they lived, because this is countryside. And they give food, these various people are giving food to anybody who turns up. There's no questions asked, no IDs required, just whoever turns up, whoever needs food, they'll give what they can. Then there are the other individuals who are doing amazing things. So Marla is the chef at Pizza Toro and across the road at the Jack Tar. She was really upset that there was dough going to waste from pizza dough. And I didn't know this. She taught me that focaccia is just pizza dough left to rise. So it's basically pizza dough left to its full potential. So she took every little scrap of pizza dough left from the restaurants, and she would bake it with her various people that she worked with into focaccia and give it away to the various pantries and to the free lunch program and whoever else needed it. So while she wasn't working as a chef, which is why she looks pretty tired and she was exhausted, but in the evening she's busy baking bread to give away. Then this person, Ingrid Nunes, works for Head Start. In her spare time, which I don't know when she has any spare time, so every lunch and every evening, she drives around dropping off food and clothes for people. So people have got to know her. She gives out her cell phone. She says, if you have a problem, just call me. So it's a lot of people from Head Start But it's also the people from Head Start's people who know people who know people. And then on the weekends, she works for, when they have a pantry, she works at the Iglesia Episcopal El Buen Pastor, and she organizes their food pantry. And she helps Elder Gladys. That's how I met Ingrid, because she was dropping by to get some food because Elder Gladys needed food to be taken to somebody who needed food somewhere else. And so she is just constantly in her car delivering food. Then you may know Ari. He's 9th Street Bakery around the corner. Lo and behold, Ari gives away food all the time, and bread and money. So Ari gave away all the money he received from sort of that extra COVID money. He gave it away to food pantries, and there's still free lunches. He doesn't advertise it, but every day he gives away free lunch to people still. So he's just quietly giving away food, doing it. Another individual. These two ladies, Bobby Gallagher and Joni Novak, produced last year 4,500 pounds of produce, which they gave away. So they have a small garden right near sort of Woodcroft area out there, outside one of the Catholic, it's called the Good, I've forgotten the name of the garden. Anyway, it's at a Catholic church. And they have volunteers who work with them, but essentially it's the two of them just every day produce food. And they get a lot of, they do really well with their produce because they get the coffee grounds from the coffee shop around the corner. So they go to the coffee shop and they use all the coffee grounds as fertilizer. So a little tip, coffee grounds, really good fertilizer. And they give it to food pantries, they give it to people around and about. Another extraordinary person is Miss Marcela Thompson. She has a project called the Mustard Seed Project, and she does have a small fundraising like GoFundMe site, but basically single-handedly, she's looking after over 250 families in one of the poorest, saddest apartment complexes off Alston Road that you wouldn't know it's there if you didn't know it's there. It's behind a church. There's this complex, and behind that is a recycling place. So it's as close as people could be living in a garbage dump. It is so poor. And she basically feeds all the families there, and she's taken on another whole, apparently very poor apartment complex that I haven't been to, off Garrett Road, to look after people there too. She works with her daughter, Alex, and she also gets food from all over the place, and her vegetables there were from the Black Farmers Association, so she works with them. But she just has more energy than anybody I've ever met. So in between all of this, she organized a vaccine campaign. She went to Walgreens, spoke to the manager, and said she needs to get all her people vaccinated. And they put on a special extra day and weekends and extra people, and she just registered people and took them over. If they couldn't get there, she drove them. She had a translator to help her with people who don't speak English, and she just does it. So that's, she has this, say, small project, but basically, she gets money, she gets food out of nowhere. Then this young lady, Jolanda Malone, is, she walks dogs, and from the dog walking money, she makes meals and she gives them away. So she was feeding maybe 10 people a week, making 10 meals, but she was doing it, and from her dog walking money. And so, and she's vegan, so to be good, healthy vegan meals, and she didn't live in a place of great means either. So she was making do with what she could, And she was collecting, because she likes animals, she was also collecting all sorts of food and things for animals and for people's dogs, because she said that people are hungry, but their dogs are hungry too. So she was looking after both the best she could within what she could do. Then this you might have seen on Club Boulevard. It's also just up the road. So Danny and Jess have a little stand outside their house, and they also have a little garden, and they grow things, and they put out seedlings, and they go gleaning. They also glean, and they just put it out in this little, on the stand outside their house in Club Boulevard, and people come past, and people drop off food, but people take food, and they don't ask any questions. If somebody's coming past, they don't go out because they don't want anybody to feel bad about it. And so they're doing what they can to help. And then the last person in this group is Lilton Evans Jr, who is from a farming family in Virginia. He is a veteran, and he grows food. And that's what he does. He works growing food. I say works. He spends a lot of time growing food down at Briggs Garden, the extension agency. He helps everybody who needs to grow, who is trying to grow food. He is teaching people to grow food all over the place. And he wouldn't tell me how much food he's given away because it doesn't matter. He just grows food. So that's, locally known as Evans, but Lilton Evans Jr. So these are the photographs I thought to bring for this project. And then I was thinking about, because Nell said, maybe I want to talk a little bit about process and how I think about things. So I was thinking about a project I did about 20 years ago and thought I'll show a few photographs of those. And I thought about it because it was one of the other times that I was sent out the door by anger and frustration and the need to do something. And this was when I was living in London, and refugees were being portrayed in a really dismal way by the media. And they still are. And things haven't got any better. But anyway, that's where I was at that moment and thought that maybe things would get better, but they didn't. But so I decided that I wanted to go and photograph refugees, and in a way that might also put photographs out where somebody look at the photographs and think, this could be me. This could be me. Just by the grace of whatever, my circumstance, this is not me, but this could easily be me. So I, very similarly to this, contacted 8 various people, and the project took a lot longer. It was a 2-year project in the end. And in order to understand a little bit more about the refugees and exiles and their situations, I actually spent time working as a volunteer for an organization called the Medical Foundation for the Care of Torture. And I was the interviewer of people when they came in looking for help. So that sort of gave me, it pushed me right into the middle of it. And I also just knocked on doors at different organizations and said, can I come? Can I talk to you? This is what I want to do. Is there a way of doing it with you? And so in the end, it became an exceptionally collaborative project. And here are some of the photographs. So Shom is from Kurdistan, Iraq. So this was in early 2000. And what I did with these photographs is I photographed people. Then I asked them to bring something that was meaningful to them in the photograph. I went to their homes, but I used a white background because I didn't want to distract from who they were. And when I had finished all the photography, 52 different people, I realized that the voice of the people was missing. So then I took all the photographs back to everybody and asked them please to write a little bit about the thing that they had brought on the photograph. And I gave them very strict instructions because I was very concerned. This changed me. You know, photography, documentary photography is transformative. There's no doubt about it. And at this point, I was still very precious about photography. So I had hand printed these in the darkroom. And I had, they were all platinum prints. They were, you know, beautiful prints. And I was very concerned about the archival process and acid and, you know, how these are going to last forever and so on and so forth. So I gave everybody strict instructions. Fortunately, nobody listened to me. I guess Shom did because she was young. So I asked people to write everything, almost, because I asked them to give me borders for framing, and I gave them special pencils to write with, because I thought, you know, there would be no problem with the acid and these special pencils. And so Shom kept by it. She wrote a poem about what she had. But fortunately, Agim took absolutely no notice. So he turned it into a piece of art that it just almost, when I saw it, it almost brought me to tears. So he is Albanian. Behind him is the Albanian flag, and written across is freedom. And that all that is written there is actually all in English. And essentially, what he says as part of it is that he says, freedom is, he says, my concern is that I might not recognize freedom. I might be sitting next to her on the bus and get off. And that's, you know, he wrote it much more eloquently, but so that was Agim. And Nazrin, who did not want to be recognized, she's from Iran, also took absolutely no notice of me. And the reason I photographed that is that was her object, but she did not want to be in the photograph because she was too afraid of the Iranian authorities. But then she just, you know, wrote an entire page all over the photograph. As did Marta. And she also just did the, you know, took no notice, used ink, her own inks. As did Rebois, who is an artist in his own right. He's a Kurdish artist. As did Constanza. So I thought to show these just because I was driven by the same impulse to make it, and yeah, it was an amazing collaboration. Back to food and the problems that we have here. I can't speak to food insecurity because I'm the photographer. I don't know enough about it. However, there's a person here who's going to help me a little bit, and Mary Oxendine works for the Extension Agency. She's the Durham County's Food Security Coordinator. And she's going to tell you a little bit because the problem hasn't gone away. So I'm going to ask her to tell you just briefly, and then we'll have some questions.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Rhonda.
Sure.
Every time I see her photos, it's like there's no words for the work that people are doing in our community, and I really appreciate Rhonda for her thoughtful documentation of that. I just wanted to share that food security has not gone away. It was an issue before COVID, and COVID has just exacerbated it. Even though people may be going back to work and things are kind of opening up, the negative economic impacts of COVID remain. One story, a gentleman, he wasn't able to make as much money during COVID because his hours got cut back. So he wasn't really paying his rent for a while. But he has been paying rent since September 2020. but he's still $10,000 behind on his rent. For people who are living in poverty, who experiencing food insecurity, deciding between paying your rent or buying food, paying for your electricity or buying food, it's sorry, can you hear me? It's something that you wouldn't want to have to choose every day, and so our families and people in our community are having to make those choices. The rates of food insecurity are still double what they were prior to COVID. So I guess I just wanted to encourage you, don't forget about food insecurity whenever you're thinking about the issues that are facing our community. I think people are used to this like hungry child in Africa, kind of like what food insecurity looks like, and that's not what food insecurity looks like in the United States. It's people talk about cardiovascular disease as like a silent killer, and food security is that silent, not necessarily killer, but it's very silent in its appearance. So I guess just to kind of plug really quickly, one thing that was on Rhonda's banners is a Food for Durham fundraising campaign that the county is working on with the United Way. So if you are interested in donating, feel free to go there. These organizations and lots of others are always looking for volunteers. And so if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk more to you, but I don't want to take up too much time, so Rhonda can answer questions.
Thanks, Mary. All right, thanks. Any questions? Sorry, thanks, Mary. I couldn't tell you all about that, but those lines are still there. Iglesia Manuel is still feeding 550 families a week. So that's like, I think they said is that like 2,000, 3,000 people a week are still trying to get food, and that's just one place. So aside from that, are there any questions from anybody?
Are you still continuing to make work on this project, and do you have any other plans to continue to show it in other locations?
So I haven't continued to make work because I just felt I had to stop somewhere. There are a couple of things I would love to be able to do with respect to the project, and one of them is very big and I think maybe it's too ambitious for me to do by myself, is that I would love to work with somebody or a group of somebodies to see if there's a way of asking the people who are receiving food if they would like to talk about their experience. In other words, not imposing a documentary on them, but people who are receiving food, they have a voice. So it's trying to figure out how to turn that around and let people come forward if they wouldn't want to speak, because it's not that they don't have a voice. So that's one thing that's floating around about this, but I haven't been able to nail it down. With respect to exhibiting the pictures, I'm doing the best I can and hoping to exhibit them anywhere I can. So in fact, there's some banners up on fences near Motorco, because we took the banners down because they needed to come down for various reasons. But ever since then, anytime I see a fence, I'm thinking, this could be a place for the banners. So there's some near Motorco on some fences. There's 6 banners up. And we've been talking about other places. Mary's been trying to figure out where we can put some others. So if anybody has a fence, we have more banners. Banners in search of a fence. And the photographs, there's still photographs up at the Durham Arts Council in the windows. Client.
This is very moving and very motivating. And if we wanted to just rush off and write a check or do something, are you the closest there is to a sort of unified, sort of nexus that is connected to a lot of independent operations and would know the best ways to direct things?
Yes. So I actually just started in this position
position in April of this year, so I kind of came in during the pandemic. But yeah, so I have been working closely with all of these food pantries and other organizations in the community providing food. The Food for Durham Fund is a great way to, if you're looking for like one particular location to donate. Pretty much any food pantry is interesting. But yeah, if you're interested in sort of like who has the most need or greatest need, if you have questions, I can give you my card or other folks.
That's part of my question. I mean, I'm already volunteer with the basic as well. But, where is the greatest need? I mean, to give something to a food pantry, or is there some sort of, I don't know how to prioritize. I would welcome any better sense of comparing to those people.
Is it foodfordurham.org? Is there a website?
Yes, Food for Durham. Yes, there is, and on.
It is a website.
Yes. Yes, and if you happen to be down by Motorco, the QR codes on the banners will take you straight to it. But then you have to go down to the banners down by Motorco. They're not at Motorco, but they're right next door. They're on the fences of the auto repair places. Yes, they're on, all the photographs on End Hunger Durham's website.
If you go to, it's United Way triangle. I can actually send it to you. I don't know if you're able to send it out to folks afterwards.
Yeah, I can certainly send it to Florence, and I can see what, put it up somewhere.
Yeah. It's under on the United Way's website, Food for Durham, and that would be the best way to get it.
Thank you.
And does that website have the individual, is there a list of the individual organizations that are supported?
There is not. The way that funding is actually operating is the community, there's actually a community committee that's working together to distribute the funding out to organizations. So it's a community-led initiative that gives it their funding.
Okay, so there's not an actual list somewhere of all the people who
End Hunger Durham has a list. End Hunger Durham, they have a list, and it's a very, very big list of, 68 food pantries. Yeah, that gives you a sense of it. Both of the need and the incredible work people are doing. Any other questions or questions about the photographs? Real good. Thank you.